Hey, everybody, this is Ken Tucker from Changescape Web. Welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. I'm joined by Paul, Ian, Jeff, and Apoorv today. Jeff and Apoorv are fairly new to our podcast, so we're really excited to have them on board, and we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to wrap up, 2023 just by talking about some of the things that we use and we follow and trust in terms of marketing resources. That could be a blog, it could be a book, could be a video series or a YouTube channel, or other marketing resources. Maybe there are some paid subscriptions that we belong to, or Facebook or LinkedIn communities that we find useful. And so, I just thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about those things today. We've done this in the past a little bit, but as everybody knows, the world of marketing is not, it doesn't stop. It only accelerates in the pace of change. So with that, I'm going to start with Ian. Ian, I'd like for everybody to talk about, 5 or 6, and you can pick and choose whichever you want, marketing books or blogs or video series, marketing resources, whatever you want to use. Just talk about 5 or 6 of the ones that are kind of your go-tos. Ian, let's get started with you.
Sure. Yeah, I'll can you hear me first of all? Because I just had a little blip on my screen there.
We can.
Cool. Yeah, some of my favorite things right now, and it's because I'm a little bit time starved in my life and business, is I get some stuff delivered right to my inbox that's excellent as far, from my perspective as a marketer that's trying to stay on the cutting edge. 2 of them are one's called Stacked Marketer. It's a fantastic e-newsletter with latest trends, resources. They highlight some things. I just love it because it gives me little snippets. I can catch up on things. It takes me to the original articles. They're not producing all of the content, but they're helping you find relevant content.
Yeah.
The other one is called Psychology of Marketing. And I think this is a really valuable resource, especially for people that are trying to take their marketing to the next level, because it's really about how do you leverage psychology in your sales and marketing. And I think that's something that's often overlooked, because people are just, trying to get stuff pushed out the door so fast that they don't really stop to think about, how is this going to affect my readers, my followers, the people that are connected with me, to move them to make a decision. Some other resources I really, really value are Business Made Simple, powered by StoryBrand, and that's by Donald Miller. That is an absolutely, one of the best. What's that?
It's probably behind me.
That's right. But it's one, like, as far as investments in your business, both from a marketing perspective and from running your business standpoint, I just think Donald Miller has created one of the best resources online that's available right now, and it's very reasonably priced.
Ian, can I ask you a question about that? Yeah.
Sure.
Why'd you pick Business Made Simple over any of the other Donald Miller books?
Oh, so that's Business Made Simple is actually his platform.
Okay.
Yeah. So
because he's also got a book called Business Made Simple, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love, some of the books I love are How to Grow Your Small Business, Business Made Simple, Building a Story Brand. Those are all excellent books that every business owner who wants to do marketing well should read. But it's the platform. It's a learning platform that Donald Miller and his team have put together, that there's video content, there's courseware, but it's all very excellent. So if you like any of his content, that you've read a book or read his blog or watched his videos, you should check out the Business Made Simple website, because the coursework on there is just fantastic. And he's put a lot into it.
I'm biased too as a coach. I'm a certified coach, so
yeah,
it's great stuff. The thing that I love about it is he uses an airplane as the metaphor for how to grow your business, and the way he does that is, I think it makes it really simple, because that's it. He is a master at simple, to communicate key points and different elements of what you need to be focused on for your business. So.
Yeah, I love it. And that actually leads really well into a few books that I really value as a business owner and a marketer. From a business standpoint, E-Myth Revisited That's E-Myth Revisited. If you've never read that as a business owner, man, you got to read that book. So many newer books are actually based on the philosophies that are in that book. It's by a guy named Michael Gerber. Excellent book. Duct Tape Marketing. It's getting a little dated now. He's due for an update. But the Ultimate Marketing Engine is kind of a follow-up to that, which would actually help you be a little more up to date. Mike Michalowicz, Fix This Next. Again, from a business standpoint, priority, what priorities, what should you be focusing on on a business as a business owner are excellent. Blogs that I really value, Neil Patel on SEO. I love SEMrush's stuff, partly because we use the tool, partly because they deliver great stuff. I used to really like Thrive. We use Thrive Themes as part of our tech stack when we build websites. And the prior owner of it used to do some really great blogs. And if you ever go back and look at those, they're fantastic. Then I'm not so convinced the newer ones are as good, but I still value those. And then just some other books I really value. This is a fairly new one. All It Takes Is a Goal by John Acuff. And it's talking about the 3-step plan to ditch regret and tap into your massive potential. But it's based on a really recent study on how people either achieve or don't achieve goals. And that one right there is just a great read that I'm going through right now. You also asked, Ken, about resources. I'll be super short on this. Google Ads is still one of our go-to platforms for ads. We use lots of them, but I love Google Ads because it's really qualified buyers that you're connecting with. Canva is a tool that we use an awful lot of. I actually studied as a graphic designer years ago, so I'm really familiar with, and we still subscribe to Adobe's products. But man, we use Canva way more than we use Adobe products now because it's fast. The templates are great. It's easy. You can do videos as easily as you can do static images. So the other thing I would add is Google Analytics is still really powerful for us because we need to measure results for both our own marketing and for our clients' marketing. But I would say we add on a tech stack to that, which is just Google Looker Studio, because the new Google Analytics 4 is just a real pain. If you're familiar with the
everyone's laughing. Everyone,
yeah, like just the way they've made it, it's really hard to find the information that you loved finding before and reported on. And so now we actually pull it out of Google Analytics into the other product called Google Looker Studio, which is kind of a data visualization tool. And that just allows us to show the clients what we really want to show them from a visual standpoint. But those are just some of the resources and blogs and everything that I value. I can't wait to hear what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, cool.
Ian, I think one of the reasons that we all laughed when you mentioned GA4, my wife, who's also my business partner, we have the running inside joke. They made it better, right? And there's constant churn. It's not just Google, it's constant churn across technology and all aspects of it. And they're constantly making it better, which means there's always something new to learn, always something to wrestle with in a lot of cases. And that's, I think that's why we chuckle, because been there, done that.
Do you remember when I was in the corporate world at the time, but I remember when Microsoft Office products, they decided that ribbons were the way to, they called them ribbons. I don't, see some nods. Ribbons were the way to go. And everybody that knew hotkeys and how to use the functionality of the software suddenly were at a loss and had to retrain themselves. And I feel like Google has done that with Google Analytics. Like, you had a great tool. Yes, you wanted to switch how analytics were being used, but why can't you pull the same reports you could pull before? Still mystifies me. Yeah.
It's not just, again, to be fair, it's not just Google. Facebook, the Facebook Pixel isn't Facebook Pixel anymore. It's a data source, and they've moved where it is. It still operates the same as far as I can tell. It's still set up the same as far as I can tell. They just made it better and changed the name and moved it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a long-term plan for that. You mentioned the Microsoft ribbon. I absolutely hated it when it first came out. It took me about a month, and I got used to it. It's like, okay, this is kind of cool. Yeah, so I think we have a lot of that.
Yeah. Definitely. Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, well, I think Ian hit a lot of the high points. Of course, we're all duct tape marketers here, following the way I describe duct tape marketing as a philosophy or framework to operate out of. So, we'd all be remiss if we didn't have that on our list someplace. That's one of the books on the top of my list. I kind of go an eclectic mix, and I'm going to kind of fall on my sword a little bit and say up front, I've found myself so busy with so many things and keeping up with things that I don't probably do as much deeper reading and deeper, investigation as I maybe could or should. So, but you also kind of framed it, Ken, as what are the kind of the go-tos or the fallbacks. So I think in some of the big concepts, some of the ones that have made an impact on me over the years, duct tape marketing, the one thing by Gary Keller, I think is really good to help realize that, especially as business owners and agency owners and, our audience, they're probably mostly people that are wearing a lot of hats, right? The thing with being a small business owner is you've got to do it all. You've got to build sweat equity. And the one thing by Gary Keller talks about the early days of him building his real estate empire, of having a consultant come in and say, you've got to just focus on the one thing that makes everything else easier or irrelevant. And if you focus on that one thing, then the rest will follow. And that's how he started building his team and building systems and processes in the business. And, I think that's a good read. Nobody mentioned Perry Marshall, but Perry Marshall in the early days, he wrote the Google AdWords Bible, I think it was called. But he's got a book out called 80/20 Sales and Marketing. And that's a really good book. Again, it helps focus on the important things. And one of the key concepts of that book that I got is 80/20 is, he calls it fractal. Of the 80/20, of the 80 that you care about, 80% of that is the most important. And of the 80% of that, 80%. So you can really drill down and zero in on the things that are important and are going to make an impact. In terms of some of the business building books, I think, Traction by Gino Wickman, it's part of the EOS Foundations, and then Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. They're kind of in the same vein. They're really good for business building, for focusing on systems and process. And then to go more tactical, I think Russell Brunson's got a few good books out. Traffic Secrets is a good one. He talks a lot about different ways to leverage different channels. It's a few years old now, so it's probably the way things are done have been made better, but I think the concepts are good. And then from the sales side, for anyone like me that's not a natural salesperson, the Sandler method is really good. I've been through their training, and David Sandler, and I think he's been dead for over 25 years. So this is old practice concepts that are still very much relevant and very much in play. But the book is called "You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar." But it talks about the Sandler method, and the Sandler method is really about getting back to consultative process, consultative selling. And that really also rings a bell with, tapping into your audience, and what we do as marketers, tapping into the audience and how to essentially start the sales process, start leading them through know, like, and trust to want to do business with us or our client companies.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Sandler Sales. The methodology has kind of stood the test of time, and I think it lends itself really well to professionals and folks that are selling like professional services.
Yeah. I've been just, if you don't get anything else out of it, one of the biggest things is stop being that stereotypical sales guy. The we like to bag on used car salesman, but stop being the used car salesman and be more of the consultant that's understanding first and then helping solve a problem. Ian, you mentioned Neil Patel. I think he is one of the blogs that I follow the most religiously. There is a ton of not only information in his blogs, but the way he presents them. And they tend to be a little bit long because there is so much information, but that's part of how he presents it and how he gets such good SEO traction. There's a lot of rich content in his blogs. And he also does videos, so he's using multi-channel. We talk about that a lot as being important. Content Hacker, I've started following more recently. Content, John calls content the voice of strategy. Content, super important, and how that world is changing rapidly is something that I think we've all got to tap into. I think Content Hacker's on top of that. kind of going back to other resources, one of my old standbys, I just literally mentioned this to somebody the day before yesterday. About twice a year, I go back to YouTube and I watch Simon Sinek's TEDx talk called, I think it's called Start With Why. It's based on his book, Start With Why. But it's a really good reminder. Like I said, about twice a year, I review it, that it's not what we do or what we want to sell, it's why we do it, and tapping into that and helping people solve problems, helping our clients tell their story, going back to story brand and telling the story through the why, because people are going to identify with the why a lot more than the what or even the how. And one of the examples that Simon Sinek gives is Dell versus Apple in the early days of music in your pocket, portable so-called jukeboxes. Does anyone realize or remember that Dell had a product called the Dell Jukebox? So. It was actually out a little before the iPad, I think, and a little more capable, or the iPod rather, and a little more capable in it, but you never hear about it. And that's because Dell was all about the what, and Apple was all about the why. So that Simon Sinek TED Talk, I highly recommend. You can find it on YouTube. There's some good Facebook groups out there. Again, it goes back to where you want to get your information, how you get your information. So Facebook groups can be a good way to tap into communities. SEO Signals is SEO Signals Lab is a good one for people that are getting deep into SEO and want to be able to ask questions and search the community, see what other topics have come up that may be answering their questions, and just engage with some pretty knowledgeable people in there. And one of the things that I recommend that Ian, you didn't mention, I think there's a lot of the tools and platforms that we use. Their websites have a lot of great resources on them. HubSpot has some great resources for training, free training. I think Bright Local's got some good resources and some good blogs out there. There's just a lot of stuff that if you go looking around the platforms, you're also going to find training. Google's got a lot of free training. Google has a Think with Google resource. So a lot of things that you can tap into there and kind of see what other people are saying. So that's one of the reasons that we want to read a lot, is not get stuck in our own heads, but see what other people are saying and how they're thinking about the world and what they see as coming along.
All right, cool. Apoorv, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, so the list gets narrower and narrower, right? These guys went ahead and they picked all the really good stuff. So, but no, you know what? There's a ton of really great books and resources out there. So some of the ones I'll go through that Ian and Jeff haven't mentioned yet. So I read and consume a ton of stuff. And I like to try to catalog it and get a sense of, okay, what's really good, what can I apply in other places, things like that as well. There's a guy that I follow, Malcolm McDonald, Professor Malcolm McDonald out of the UK. He's got a book, and he's got a whole bunch of content around marketing planning. And I mean, his stuff's really more for B2B marketing and industrial marketing. That's kind of really his focus. But if you're in that space, I would kind of rank him up there with he's not kind of a fly by night type person. This is essential marketing strategy planning type stuff is really, really good. And I apply his teachings almost on a daily basis. There's another one, The Creative Process Illustrated. So, Ian said he was a designer by formal training and background. I'm not. So, and I'm not really good with pretty pictures and design principles and things like that. So, I found that this book really helped me to kind of understand, okay, what does the creative process look like? And particularly if you're working with designers or creative agencies or writers or whatever, how can you actually kind of help them and manage that process so that you get better results out of it and they get better results out of it too? So that one's really good. Influence by Robert Cialdini. That's a classic, right? Same thing, positioning with Al Ries. Those I think are kind of essential reading for anyone in the marketing world. Everyone's a Writer by Anne Handy. So she's really great, and I think a lot of folks in marketing circles really respect her. But that book in particular, I think, it just really helps people to find their voice. That like a lot of people kind of struggle with this whole idea around content and how do I produce stuff, right? And she kind of really gets into how you can overcome some of those obstacles by being authentic to who you are. And there's another book, and the title gives away the entire premise of the book, but the book's called Strategy and the Fat Smoker, by a guy, David Maister. And what I love about that book, and I recommend it to a ton of folks, is you can have great ideas and you can have great strategy. If you don't actually act upon it, it doesn't do anything for you, right? And that's the whole idea, right? So, like everyone knows that, yeah, you should eat less or eat better and work out more, and you should probably stop smoking 5 packs a day. But there's still people that do that, right? And so this whole book kind of talks about like, okay, it's not enough just to know and to have fancy plans. You have to actually do. So I recommend that to a ton of folks. And timely going into the new year, everyone's making New Year's resolutions, right? So you're gonna stick to your workout plans, or you're gonna stick to your marketing strategy plans, right? In terms of like blogs and resources, ton of great stuff out there. I think both Ian and Jeff had mentioned Duct Tape Marketing. There's the original book. I actually really like John's podcast. So John Jantsch has a podcast, the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. And he's always got like current authors and speakers and folks on there. So the book is maybe a little bit dated now, like you pointed out, but the podcast has kind of all the latest, greatest current stuff on there. Not for lazy marketers, Emily Hirsch. She's got really great stuff. I listen to that all the time. That's a great podcast. Paul Rotzer over at the Marketing AI Institute, particularly over the last year. I've talked to Paul a number of times. I've heard him speak in person. I've done online webinars and stuff with him. I listen to his podcasts, his materials. The marketing and artificial intelligence space is just moving so quickly, and it's just a really good resource from people that know what they're talking about, which I think is a key thing. Because I've read probably about 3 or 4 books related to marketing and AI over the last year, and I don't want to name names, but I'm just going to say they weren't very good. I think people were rushing to get stuff out there, whereas I think the Marketing AI Institute folks, they've got a lot of deep expertise in this space. They've been at it for 10 plus years, before it was kind of the latest, greatest. So they're a really, really great resource. And then
I wanted to jump in and make the joke. I wonder if they were AI generated.
I think the ones that I read that were not great, I think that they were. And again, I'm not naming names there, but when you read through them, it's like, this is, like, I hate to say it, but this was garbage, right? So there was, I think, a whole bunch of folks that were like rushing to get marketing AI content out. And
AI is great. It's an incredibly powerful and useful tool, but you can't just use it solely. I think a lot of the stuff that's coming out, so people are doing, they're going into whatever their favorite platform is, Bard, ChatGPT, and they're saying, write me a book, and copy paste, and off they go. And that's no. I mean, we could probably do a series of podcasts on marketing and AI, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's, and you can see it, right? Like it's a tool, right? So if you know the subject matter and you can use the tool, it supplements what you're doing. It makes it faster, it makes it better, right? Those types of things. If you don't know what you're doing and you go to use a tool, you get garbage out of it, right? So I think that's what it comes down to with a lot of folks on that. Yeah. The last one I was going to mention.
Who are those authors again? Approve?
Sorry.
I said, who are those authors again?
I'm joking. Like I said, I don't want to name any names on here, but if you pick any of them up, they're all on Amazon for whatever 99 cents or something they're trying to sell out there. Right? The ones I'm talking about. Yeah. And sorry, the last one I was going to mention was there's a podcast I've been listening to for a few years called the Paid Search Podcast. And it's a couple guys, and all they talk about is Google Ads. And so, if you're in the pay-per-click world, it's just a really great resource to keep on top of all of the changes that happen with Google and what folks are doing with their latest strategies and what's working and what isn't. So,
all right, cool. Hey, Paul, how about you?
Well, I'll try not to repeat what anyone else said. I tend to read things online. I do watch things on YouTube. Mike Cooch, Office Hours, he has some really good stuff on YouTube. Backlinko, they have some really good in-depth guides. If you just go to their website, and they have guides on, let's see, link building, content marketing, SEO. And they have a bunch of them. You can practically get an education just watching that, And some of the other resources, like Google has something called an SEO starter guide, which is really good if you're just wanting to learn the basic. And then Backlinkos, they have an SEO marketing hub, which is good. I think Ahrefs was mentioned. They have a really good YouTube channel, and their blog is really good. And Google Search Console, there's a Google Search Console training, and there's a lot of information in Search Console, but you do have to kind of know how to use it. And some of the other things, WordStream has some really good stuff. Neil Patel was mentioned. I don't know if anyone mentioned Moz SEO Learning Center, Search Engine Journal, and Search Engine Land. I think they were mentioned. The Unbounce blog, that's pretty good. I think the other things I look at have already been mentioned.
There's a guy that you follow for Google Ads that I hear you talk about a lot. Something 8.
Yes. God, I'm drawing a blank. Solutions 8, I think.
Yeah, I think it is Solutions 8.
Yeah, that's all they do is Google Ads, and if you're not spending about $5,000 or $6,000 a month, they won't even talk to you.
Yeah, but they share
a
really
great YouTube channel. They do have some good information.
Yeah. All right, cool. So for me, I mean, obviously you guys have hit a lot of them. One thing that I'm gonna talk a little bit about social media, because I think that's an area we haven't really talked about. Social Media Examiner is still a fantastic resource. Mari Smith is still queen of Facebook. She's a great person to go to. She often finds out things that are happening in the Facebook world before they're publicly announced. And so you can kind of get an idea and a foreshadowing of the direction that some things may be happening there. I think for me, in terms of books, A Time to Win by Jay Baer, it's a simple, quick read. I mean, you can be done with it in less than an hour, and it's got so much actionable stuff in there. And speed of response, is critical to win business. But what Jay talks about in A Time to Win is not only is speed of response critical to winning, but it also allows you to offer a fast button so you can charge more. And give people the ability to kind of jump the line, and you can charge maybe 30% more. And the other thing is, if you're responding first, you don't have to be the low cost. And so many people feel like they need to rush to the bottom and discount their lowest prices and services to be able to win the business. And with the state of technology as it is today, you don't have to do that. I mean, there are so many great tools that will allow you to respond quickly. Another huge book that came out several years ago, but again, fundamentally an absolutely critical concept, is a book called Subscribed. And it's a book that just talks about, we live in a subscription-based world today, and every business needs to challenge themselves. How can they create a subscription? If you're a roofer, how are you going to create a subscription? Because right now, too many roofers operate with a one and done. You're not going to see that customer for maybe 10, 15, 30 years, depending on the state of the roof, if you ever see them again. So you have to literally constantly rely on finding brand new customers, which is the most expensive form of customer acquisition. Or you better hope that, probably the partially conceived ideas that you have for referral and word of mouth marketing are driving enough business to you to where you can survive. Think about it. If you can create a model where you have a paid service, even if it's to break even, so that you stay top of mind, so that you can diagnose and identify problems, it's a game changer. And I mean, so there are a lot. I think every business can challenge themselves to find a way to create a subscription. And I think it's absolutely critical to do. Oh gosh. I mean, there are so many resources. Paul, I'm glad you mentioned Mike Cooch. I mean, he shares so many great pieces of information, especially for people who are practitioners of marketing. If you're more on the business owner side, it may not be that meaningful for you, but again, a lot of great stuff. People like Dr. Ben Atkins shares a lot of really great stuff. In terms of small business marketing. Strategic Marketer is, I find, to be an exceptional resource. I mean, Seven Figure Agency, again, an exceptional resource. And I think even if you're not a professional marketer and your business is selling, or if you're a professional marketer, it may still resonate with you. But if you're trying to build a marketing business, I still think those resources carry a lot of value for you, because they just talk about how do you write quality offers? How do you get your offer in front of the right people? What do you do to nurture people from once they raise their hand and they say, hey, I'm kind of interested, to the point where they actually become a paying customer? Duct tape marketing is a critical resource, I know, for all of us. The marketing hourglass, if you can only focus on one piece of duct tape, the marketing hourglass is the absolute golden piece of that in my mind, because it too many people, all they talk about is what do you do to get the sale. They forget about what happens after the sale. And when you flip the hourglass over, to the repeat and refer, now you've got really a golden strategy to take and implement for your business that honestly too many businesses just completely forget about. And you need to formalize those programs. And then, StoryBrand and Marketing Made Simple, both the podcast, the books, and also Business Made Simple, I think are fantastic. We've got to have clarity in our messaging. It drives me nuts. I get so many emails from people. I own their products. They're trying to get me to upgrade, and I don't understand what the hell they're talking about in the email that they sent me. So I go hit their landing page because it's intrigued. It's a tool that I like. I go to the landing page, I read it, and I'm even more confused. You know what? I don't buy it. They've lost a sale. They've spent a lot of money putting together total crap. And, they've completely forgotten about the clarity message. And also, what is the clear call to action? You've got to make it crystal clear for people. You've got to tell them what it is that you want them to do. And so, that's where I think StoryBrand is absolutely fantastic. Obviously the challenge is driving traffic to a well-designed, conversion optimized page or landing page where you can get people into a sales funnel, nurture them to the point where they become a customer. But again, you don't want to just always assume that you have to nurture them. You've got to make sure that you give them that fast button. And those are concepts that people like Josh Nilson at Seven Figure Agency, they're brilliant at. It's like, people may sign up to watch a webinar. Are they going to watch the webinar, or did they just tell you enough when they signed up for the webinar to say, you know what, I'm probably interested in a consultation? Make it easy for them to do that. Why waste an hour and a half of their time? Most of the time, most webinars, not Josh doesn't do this, but most webinars, the first 30 minutes are BS about business owner and my poor story and why I did this and blah, blah, blah. And you know, and people, I think people don't watch webinars the way they used to because they know most of it is just pure crap. And so I don't know. There are so many great resources out there. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. The poor, I'm glad you mentioned Ann Handley. You know, she's got great information. And Amy Porterfield is another one that I want to mention. If you're focused on building a list, which every business needs to be building a list, the gold is in your list. And if you can find a way to use and effectively capitalize on your list, your business is going to have one of the most important assets it has. And Amy's really great at that. You know, we're all big believers in marketing CRMs. You know, I know we all probably tend to use the same one here in this group. But regardless of the CRM that you're using, they're going to have great information to share with you. They're going to have recipes that you can take and use for some marketing automations. They're going to.
If it's a real CRM, if it's a CRM slapped on top of something else, they probably won't have that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an operation, I mean, you know, they may call it a CRM and it's really a business operation system. You know, you need to be paying attention to that for sure. But if it's a marketing focused CRM, you know, they're going to share a lot of great information, strategies on how to get more reviews ethically, you know, marketing automations to help you nurture people, sales funnels that you can build. I mean, there's a whole variety of things. And so yeah, I'll just leave it there. I mean, those are the things that I look for are people who provide real concrete information that are game changers, you know. And if there are two books that I would tell people to read right now, because I think most businesses have not taken advantage of this, it's The Time to Win by Jay Baer, and it's Subscribed, because those can fundamentally rock your world from a business perspective. And you know, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like right now we're in a weird economy and an environment where a lot of people are doing really well, but everybody thinks the economy sucks. And there are clearly a lot of people who are not doing well at all. And, you know, there are industries that had boom years because of COVID, because, you know, and it created a backlog of services and projects and opportunities. They're now starting to see that dry up. And now they're looking around and they're like, oh my God, it's a more competitive world than it was. I'm not getting the lead flow that I was. I can't afford to not keep my business at a certain level because it's hard as heck to hire employees. You know, you've got to be paying attention to what's going on from marketing, because marketing drives sales and it drives employee recruitment if you do it right, and retention. And it also helps you build your business by getting new customers, clients, or patients.
Yeah, a couple things I don't think were mentioned that I also look at is a Bright Local Digest has some really good information.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Bright Local. Yeah, if you do local marketing, Bright Local's huge.
And the other one is Moz. They have some really good information as well. I
still go back and watch a lot of Whiteboard Fridays.
Yep.
And they're still doing them, you know, but Rand Fishkin, you know, I as a matter of fact, I went to the HubSpot an inbound conference back in 2010, and I got to see both Rand Fishkin, John Jansch from Duct Tape Marketing, and I think he was there to talk about Referral Engine there at the time, and a couple of other really big names. But that was, you know, those are people that I've followed for a very long time. There's a guy, Paul, I think I shared an article with you, John Bastille, who was one of the original editors, maybe even one of the original founders of Wired magazine. You know, I mean, he's been focused on his career on talking about paradigm shifts with technology and how technology, you know, is driving changes in behavior. And I believe he's got some new resources, you know, that are coming out, you know, so I'm curious to check those out. Last but not least is For me, the game changer that convinced me to go all in as a marketer, as an online marketer, is David Meerman Scott. The New Rules of Marketing and PR. That book, he keeps updating it. It's still just good foundational stuff because it's a pretty easy to read, pretty easy to understand concept about omni-channel marketing and all of the different levers that you need to be considering when you're trying to put together an effective marketing plan and a marketing system.
Yeah, I think this next year is going to be really interesting because COVID made a lot of people realize that they have to have an online presence and they have to be using technology. They have to be using CRMs. A lot of smaller businesses in the past are like, well, why do I need a CRM? Well, because your competitors are using them and it's going to hurt you if you're not. Because they can do things like missed call text backs. We talked about that in the past, but AI that's going to be really interesting because I think AI is going to change. I don't think it's going to replace people necessarily. It's going to change how people do their jobs. But what I'm seeing a lot of times with these online platforms is that everyone wants to jump on this AI bandwagon and they're not really stopping and thinking about how they implement it. It's like if you go, I'm sure everyone uses Zapier, and if you go into Zapier now, the first thing they do is they shove this AI thing in your face, and it's like, I know what I want to do. I don't want to click through 5 buttons to get to the standard interface because I know what I want to create.
Yeah. Nobody mentioned. I just went out of my head.
And that's why we didn't mention it, Ken.
Where was Ryan Dice before he started his new company?
Digital marketer.
Digital marketer. There we go. Are they still? I mean, I haven't seen anything from them in a very long time. I mean, I assume they're.
I was talking to someone the other day, and they're still big into that.
They're still pretty big.
I just don't see the information being pumped out from them the way it used to be. I mean, it used to be everywhere. Maybe it's just because I've ignored it. I've got another resource. We've talked about this before, but I just love this thing. It's the Elements of Value Pyramid. Please buy a copy. Be respectful for the author. You can get it from Harvard Business Review. But again, it just helps you kind of conceptualize when you're trying to clarify your message and articulate your value proposition. It's got to be in alignment with what people want. Is it solving an existential need? Is it, creating an aspirational, opportunity for somebody? That's going to be core to how you communicate with your ideal customers and effectively put that information together as part of your brand script, on a StoryBrand style website, or, even just a clear message to get people to, to take action. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that one, Ken. There's 2 versions of it, right? There's one for B2C and one for B2B as well.
Right. Yeah. Great resource. So,
one of the things I wanted to share was I just think it's important for I know it's important to me. I'm sure it's important to you guys as well. And just kind of as a public service announcement to the listeners or viewers, be careful who you let into your head, right? Like there is so much noise in the marketplace and everybody portrays themselves as an expert. And you guys know this because you're talking to prospects and clients all the time, and they get bombarded by messages from a lot of suspicious sources that may not know what they're talking about, but are trying to flog a solution, usually a low-cost solution, but not always. And I just think that's a really important thing for all of us to keep in mind. Like, vet who you're letting into your brain, because I've seen a lot of people kind of waste time, energy, and money, and ultimately hurt their business because of who they were listening to and the hype maybe that was surrounding a particular person. So
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, and even if you do hire somebody who has gone through an expert program, it doesn't mean that they're a real expert. They were able to get through the program. Some of these programs are much more rigorous than others. I can't tell you the number of StoryBrand websites that I've seen built that are horrible. They're beautiful, but they're horrible. there's just no consideration to the way the web works and the way that information is presented online from a website. Technically, visually, yeah, message wise, maybe not. Or just because somebody is trained in a particular methodology doesn't mean that they're going to be the right person that helps you implement that methodology to get you to achieve the goals that you want to and need to achieve. So great point, Ian. Definitely make sure you vet people. I wish there was an easy way to do that,
Yeah.
I like it's such an important point that you bring up, Ian, because there is no one size fits all solution, right?
Right.
And I think that's what it comes down to in the end, right? People are looking for that magic pill that's going to solve all their marketing problems, and unfortunately, it's not that simple. What worked for someone else may or may not work for you. What worked in the past for you may not work today, right? There's actually a great book on this. It's called The Halo Effect by Phil Rosenzweig. If you ever get the chance to read it, the whole premise of the book, and Phil Rosenzweig is I believe he's a professor at a university in Switzerland, but he takes a whole bunch of really, really big popular business books and he just hacks them apart and says, okay, here's why this worked for these companies in that environment and why it may or may not work for you.
Yeah.
Cool. To this point, I think one of the things that people should look for is balance. Anyone that leads with, I'm going to get you on page 1 of Google. Well, page 1 doesn't exist anymore because it's a constant scroll. But anyone that leads with, all you need to do is run ads. All you need to do is be on social media. It's not the case. We talk about omni-channel marketing. We talk about, all the different ways of reaching the audience, and starts with knowing the audience. But anyone who's focused on one thing probably isn't the right person to work with. And anyone that jumps to a solution too quickly without understanding, your unique needs and thinking it through and crafting a solution around that probably isn't the right person to work with either. And unfortunately, there's a lot of those guys out there. There's a lot of guys just want to sell you Google Ads management. They just want to sell you a website, or they just want to sell you social media. And it's, as we keep talking about, it's all the moving parts working together. So kind of one of the things to look for when you're looking at a consultant or an agency to work with.
To the point of what worked in the past probably won't work. What worked 2 or 3 years ago may not work today. And Google is really it's supposed to be starting in February. I mean, Ken, we're talking about this morning, February of next year. They're getting really strict about spam and wanting DMARC and DKIM records. I'm not going to go into that, but they're getting really strict about that. Unless you're spamming from a Gmail address, they'll always let that go through. I've noticed that.
Google loves Google, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Microsoft doesn't. I've seen Microsoft block Google and Google block Microsoft.
Oh yeah. Microsoft does some really weird things with their Office 365. They will just quarantine emails with.
Yeah. We need to keep this on topic, folks.
Okay.
Good job, Ken.
We can have that as a discussion. As a matter of fact, we probably ought to talk about the changing world of email marketing, because it is a big change. It's coming in a future episode. So I think, just to kind of put a bow on this, at the end, we kind of devolved a little bit where we kind of talked about, some things that you need to be looking at and concerns. Really, one of the reasons I like to do a podcast like this is to really just help our listeners get a good set of resources to go check out, because the more you can educate yourself, the better you can sniff out, potential tool vendors versus real marketing strategists and people who know how to implement marketing systems. And hopefully these tools, resources, books, podcasts, YouTube channels are going to help you do that. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Ian, you want to take us out?
Sure. Thanks for joining us today, and the guides, and thank you, guides, for sharing your information. Yeah, just what you said, Ken. You've just saved people from going after and listening to bad actors by putting together this podcast with our top list of what we allow into our heads. And we're experts in our fields. And so we're very careful about who we listen to. So until next year, keep calm and market on, folks.